Hello everyone, this is your host Francesco. As part of the Cybersecurity 101, we did this session with Seidea to help people that wanted to start, and specifically women in cyber, that wanted to start in this industry, to kick off and ask me a question. We covered a lot of aspects in this session. There were different people coming from different industry, so we managed to get an input on more or less on every aspect of our industry. Some of the topics were controversial, some of the topics were a little bit easier. Some of the topics I didn't know about, but I tried to explain my version of it. So I hope you enjoy and I hope that this is gonna be useful for you. Thank you for listening. Let me know your comments.
Threats out there, and I guess because I did my bachelor in information system, and I even worked for HSBC. So while I was there, that's when cybersecurity was starting, but then some time of funding. And I'm so interested also in technology, current technology. So how can we make that useful for people without people feeling that they're threatened?
So for me, do you think cyber and technology are two separate topics or they're the same topics? If you're a technologist and you're a cyber specialist, do you think you're two separate people?
I think they're all linked together.
They're the same. Security is just about doing things right. It's nothing different. Just coming up from Black Hat, and the talk that we actually opened up as a keynote, we were starting saying any security organization is a software organization. There is no difference between, at the moment, at this point in time, between technology, engineering and software and security. They're all part of the same group. Need to be all at the same level. And I myself didn't start in cyber. So my first baby, I did start in cyber, but cyber is composed by a number of things. So it doesn't matter where you start. It can be marketing, you can be network, you can be infrastructure. It's just a baby step. So it's just knowing to do things right and knowing to question things, not sticking to the status quo, questioning things. That's the hacker mentality. So when somebody presents you to the hacker mentality is actually questioning things. Don't take anything for granted and breaking things apart. That could be a process, as a business analyst is a process, or understanding what to do in a certain way. And security is formed by, for example, if you take identity, you have a process to authorize a person, review a person. Those are all processes. Normal security people say, I'm not interested, they're processes. No, they are security. They are part of security, they're doing things right. So capturing requirement, that's the first step in actually doing a security design. So most of the design people say, not my job. It's everybody's job. So security is everybody's job, but also everybody's job is also security. So don't be afraid of where you start, just learn baby step. One thing that I would say, though, start identifying the path, the field where you want to get into. So either engineering, so more towards the technical side, or design, or architecture is part of the design, so it's a level up from design. Even though the role of the architect is changing dramatically, so don't jump straight forward into it. So software engineering, penetration testing, social engineering is a new trend coming up. It's actually quite nice for people that come from a very diverse background, because it helps you. So who has heard about social engineering? Okay, what's your definition about social engineering? It's scamming people. It's trying to trick people into doing something. So it's the oldest art of ever, but it's coming back because control are getting better and better. Cloud is actually delivering more control, more security. So people try different paths, try the weakest link that is the human being. So decide if you want to be in the attacking side or the defending side, and then you have the trend of social engineering, penetration testing, or building stuff. So start learning about networks, start learning about infrastructure, start learning about a little bit automation and programming, and how to do things right. And then there is the whole privacy part, compliancy part. That is a bit different because it has to do more with the legal aspect of things and audit and compliance. One thing is different is because and don't quote me outside from this, but it's actually tricky in the auditor. So if you want to be a very effective person to deliver a 27001, a privacy thing, most of the organizations try to do the least effort as possible because they're very complicated stuff. So it's getting very good at actually passing audit without doing too much work behind it. And that's the trick. It shouldn't be like that, but it actually is. And that's why we have a lot of data breaches, because company will try to do the minimum amount of effort in terms of security. So actually security is always on budget, unless you have a data breach, then tons of budget. But actually use that also as a trick. Whenever you're asking for budget, keep the painful thing for when a big incident happens, just slice them in whenever something happens. That's one of my tricks. Because security is friction. And a lot of stuff, if you look at role-based access control, you had to define from the very beginning whatever category of users have to do to the nth degree. Nobody want to do that unless they're forced to, and unless you convince them why it's important. So normally what happens is they're going to reduce the amount of stuff, the amount of effort they're going to put in place to the minimum. And then when an incident happens, you go and review it. So does that give you more or less a view of what are the paths from cyber from the beginning? So which path would you be interested in taking? Roundtable. So I can form my mindset and direct you to how to become one or the other, and then we can touch point on how to get with the community.
I think I would be better suited in the compliance side.
Okay.
It's interesting to me. I did my master's degree in something similar, so I think it is something that would suit me, that I'm going to look into.
Yeah, can we talk about attacking,
Okay.
how that would work, as well as architecture?
Okay.
Defend, defending.
Okay. We're not narrowing it down, but that's fine.
GRC.
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 Okay.
Risk and compliance.
I think for
Narrowing.
me, capturing requirements, but then it's almost like, how do I get the stakeholders on board on the importance of, that I've captured these requirements, and we have to make sure we deliver to them. Like to your point, for example, in some small organizations, it's almost like security is like, got one guy looking after that, don't worry about it. That's always kind of like the view. So how does one get buy-in from senior stakeholders to say, yes, I'm on this project, I'm the BA, I'm accountable for the requirements. How can we get this in? That's me.
I think a bit similar, and as you mentioned, the role-based access. If we're using a system internally for an external output, that's really important as well. Think about whether it actually matches probably the legal requirement or any compliance-related issues.
Data protection and privacy.
Okay. I think we covered probably most of the aspects, so let me start from the very beginning. So you have two ways to start security in a company. Element number 0 should be an agreement across the board. So how do you get an agreement across the board on security? The first step you do from a security perspective, considering an organization that does not have anything, what do you do day 0?
Raise awareness.
To understand the company.
Okay, understand the business context, understand the level of risk that they want to undertake, but then the element is an agreement across the board on security. The element they're going to give you that is standards, procedures, and policies. Those will be the base element of security across the organization. Because they're effectively signed by the board, it is a commitment from the board across the organization. So it's your baseline. You you're going to do your audit, your compliance, your infrastructure, everything will revolve around that. So they're the most important element. Now, who has interacted with standard policies and procedures, and who knows the difference?
I have read through.
Okay.
I worked in company passes straight ISO 27021.
Levi's on the side. We're going to touch on the compliance aspect of ISO in a second. Who has read? Who knows the difference from the level of detail between the various ones? Okay.
So policies saying what you should do, procedures saying how you're going to do it, and standard is like the baseline or like what you're trying to achieve.
The level of detail.
Yeah.
So it's the end level of detail. And is exactly right. So maybe you can add a layer on top of that is the principles or the well, everybody calls it in a different way. I call it principle, guiding principle, or depends on the size of the organization, but is right. So it's an intent. So the policy is an intent of what I want to do from a security perspective, and the procedure is how I'm going to implement it. So process and procedures. And the standards is actually the technical detail. For example, I want to do encryption as a policy. I want to do encryption across all the databases, or the databases that contain critical information. Then your information security policy will actually define how do you define critical. For example, PII information, or I call it PII, American way, sorry. Your standard instead will say, these are the approved method of encryption that I'm going to do. All these elements will form effectively the baseline of your organization that you're going to apply across the board and you're going to enforce across the board. And is your best tool to actually go to each, is the default answer that you should give to every team from a design perspective, from a compliance perspective, from a data protection perspective, and saying, this is what you should do and why you should do it, because your board signed for it. So every policy, procedure and standard maybe not, but policy is the intent that the board says and is accountable for it. So in breach of audit, in breach of security, they're going to go back and see how much the policy has been applied across the board and how much, and if not applied at all, the fine is going to be massive. The more you demonstrate that you try to stick to the policy as much as you can, the least the fine is going to be. The ICO, the first thing was going to say, when's your last audit? When did you review your policy? Have you applied your policy across the board? That's the first thing they're going to look at. So compliance is a very important aspect of it, and understanding your policy standards. Now, policy and standard can be a very small set or a very big set. So depending on the size of the organization. So small organization is going to have a handful of elements that needs to be usable. Having document for the sake of document doesn't make sense. A policy is a one line sometimes, maximum 1 page. If it's more than 2 pages, it's rubbish, trash it. It needs to be as simple as possible, and in a simple language, because everybody needs to understand it. Not just technical people, not just engineers, but also business people. The board needs to understand it, and the board is not techie, especially not in England. They're not made of techies. So that's your first step. Then from an engineering perspective, you actually, from an architectural perspective, for example, you work with engineering team and you actually had to make sure that they enforce those policies, those standards. Actually, with engineering team, you probably work most of the time with standards, making sure that the standards are applied across the encryption, across data protection, across access control, across role-based access control, and so on and so forth. So that's the role of an architect, for example, even though it's changing over time. So the DevOps, for example, who has heard about DevOps or DevSecOps? Who knows the definition? So traditionally, you have somebody that captures the business requirement, and those business requirements get implemented by designer. You have two, 3 levels of design. You have the business designer, you have the business architect, you have the solution architect, data architect, blah, 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 blah. A number of architects that produce one number of documents. They pass to the engineer that implemented a low-level version of the design. They pass the design to the software engineers. They pass the design to the operation. All this passage is It's not my problem anymore. It's not my problem anymore. It's not my problem anymore. Ultimately, this ends up in operation. Operation gets the bundle of all the problem, and because project get delayed, they cut corners, hence they accept risk, that then the operation will inherit. That created SAIDA. So that was the traditional waterfall approach that doesn't work anymore. First of all, because it takes too much time to go to market, hence organizations are not anymore willing to wait too much time to go on the market, because they have startups or competition to just go to market because they take bigger risk. So startups, for example, are the one that takes most of the risk because they don't have the budget to actually do everything perfect. So they tend to cut the chase, go direct to the market, win the market, and that's a risk. But they're taking business risk and security risk. They're not different. They're the same level of risk. And that's what most organizations don't understand. That if security is the one that says no, for example, you're actually creating a risk for the organization. They're not going to be able to survive in a market that is more aggressive. So banking is a little bit of an exception because it's a big beast, but we have a lot of fintech starting here in London that is taking much more risk and is being very successful. For example, Monzo, for example, they're cutting corners around regulation and then being fined, but they're happy to be fined because they make much more money. So they're happy to take on the risk. So when you do, for example, when you go back to risk, it's actually risk against the policy or risk against not doing the policy, and that's absolutely fine. But the point is to understand actually also the consequence. So it's fine to actually say accept the risk, but also accept the consequence, and always put a timeline across the risk and mitigation. So it's fine to accept the risk up to a timeline. Don't accept risk indefinitely. Or if accept the risk, actually put mitigation around the place. So that's the trick of a security person nowadays. In discussing security element, no is not anymore an answer. In your position as a whatever field of security, always give three options. Do something, do everything, so do the perfect work, do something, do nothing. There is different level of risk and different level of mitigation you can put, but give back the option. So yes, how can I help you? These are the options. Saying no, it's not an option anymore.
Hello, this is Francesco again. I hope you enjoyed this session, and I hope to do more of this session for people that start in this industry. I have a number of blogs coming up as called Security 101, where we're going to discuss different topics for common folks or for everybody that want to start in this industry. If you like it, enjoy it, tag it, comment, share, and let me know what you want to do next. I might do some podcast, I might do some more of this one at this round table, or I might do one-on-one, like a webinar. Let me know what your feedback is, which one you liked. Again, a big shout out to Cloud Security Alliance and SAIDA for organizing this and for making this one happen. I hope you enjoy. I wish you a good evening and a good night. Goodbye.